So you've grown your business and got a team which feels fantastic until they start needing time off for vacation, sickness, training, or whatever else. And you end up doing their job as well as trying to do your own. Tune into today's podcast as we discuss how damaging having to fill gaps is for your business and how you can front foot this frustrating problem. Howdy team, it's Tony Fraser-Jones here, the host of the Profitable Tradie podcast. Got that right there, Phil. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, always good.
That's
the
good.
Profitable Tradie Profcast.
Yeah, I apologise there, listeners. We do our best.
We do our best.
What are we getting into today, mate?
Well, mate, as your team grows from a few to 4 or 5, up to 10, 20, 30, you can find that you spend lots of time filling in gaps for when they're away from work. So, pretty common. And, it could be through illness or holiday, vacation, training, bereavement, whatever. And it feels okay the first few times, but as it keeps happening, as your team grows, it starts to actually be happening all the time. Someone's always away. So I'm sure our listeners can relate to this, especially as their teams have been growing. And really, it leaves you stretched super, super thin, and it has some super damaging consequences for your business that you may not have actually realized yet. So we're going to be digging into that today and looking at how we deal with it and how we move through it, really.
Yeah, look, it's actually an issue that if you're listening, once we start talking about it, it would be like, yeah, man, that's really affecting me, but you probably haven't thought about it in those terms.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, okay, John's away, well, he'll be back next week and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
But then next week, Jeremy's away, and then the week after that, Simon's away, and it's like, oh, there's someone always the way.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have a team so I don't have to do all these jobs. The more team I get, the more people are away. And the thing is, once you have a team of, say, 10 or 12, there's always someone away.
Well, you got a team of 12 or 10 even, everyone gets 4 weeks annual leave a year. You have 40 weeks of annual leave. Regardless of sick or training or anything, there's basically a year's worth of annual leave to be accounted for.
Yeah, not to mention, training, courses or whatever it is. So this is
just annual leave.
Actually, you did
just
explain
holiday pay.
Just annual leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, mate.
I know you're right, mate. You're right.
I wasn't picking up what you're putting
If you listen
down.
to what I say, then
Well, the trouble is you say so much, and look, that's a good thing. I think if you're paid by volume,
don't piss in my pocket and tell me it's raining.
I was actually going to say there is some absolute gold in there.
Oh well, thanks, man.
But you have to pay attention.
Oh yeah. Well, and you got to pay attention for a long time, and that's where the rub comes.
That's right. It's like panning for gold.
That's right. Anyway, speaking of gold, let's get back to the episode.
Sorry,
so hey, look, I think the thing is we see this all the time with our clients, right? And it's happened recently, yeah.
Recently, yeah. Look, I was having a session with Graham and Michelle. They own a landscaping business, great people, and their project manager Simon was away with the Rona, as has been happening in the last couple of years. And Graham came in for a session, and to be honest, he was tired and sore, because he hadn't been out in the field doing the stuff for a few years. He looked pretty stiff, actually. And Michelle just laughed and said, well, you're getting old.
Graham, if you're listening, you looked fantastic, mate.
He does. Fine-looking man. Yeah. Strong shoulders.
Yeah.
Good swimmer, apparently.
Oh, really?
Surfer as well.
Oh, there you go.
He's a good man. Anyway, but yeah, project manager's away. And so Graham was basically sucked back to help with some of the jobs that needed a certain expertise to get done. But at the same time, they'd been working really hard on putting some key performance indicators in place for their team. But, the last couple of weeks, no time for that, because it was all about just getting out to get the job done. And Graham was like, well, this was never a problem when it was just Paul and I. And we've been working with Graham and Michelle for a number of years, and when they kicked off, there was just Graham and Paul. Now they've got a team of 14 odd. It's always the problem now.
Yeah.
And I've coined a term for this. I call it the pullback effect. I don't know if that's a good term. I'm concerned about it a little bit.
Let's not go there. We'll just call it the pullback effect,
okay.
and we'll
and
just
say
say
with a straight face.
Yeah, with a straight face.
But basically, what it is you got a team and someone's away, and you get pulled back to fill in the gap.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've got quite a large team, and one of your managers or 4 persons or project manager, operations manager, they get pulled back to fill in out in the field, and then you get pulled back in to fix the hole that they've left, and so it goes.
Well, everyone just kind of gets pulled down the rungs, right?
Pretty much. That's exactly what happens. You get pulled back towards you're getting the work done out in the field.
Let's call it the pullback paradox.
The pullback I like that.
You like that?
I've actually learned a little bit about this recently because one of my kids has been doing language features in English.
Yeah. You got to go for the alliteration.
The alliteration.
Yeah,
And he's just been writing a speech, and he was like, I need to get some language features in there, Dad.
Oh, it's catchier with the alliteration, mate. You got to
Pullback paradox.
Yeah, there you go.
I reckon
you're welcome.
I'll pay him $10 if he'll just slip that in the speech. Doesn't matter what it's about. Just put that in there.
Yeah,
It's
man.
like the aftermatch speeches for rugby, eh?
You got to drop a word, yeah.
A word in there which makes...
I probably won't give you some examples.
No, I can think of a few.
Yeah.
Beep,
How you-
beep. Anyway.
How you slip it in is always an art form. Few problems we can run into, you know what I mean?
Probably a few problems with this
If we
recording.
can't get past the pullback paradox, then,
That's right.
we can definitely run into some issues, and I think that issues everybody experiences, right, as you grow
100%.
your business.
100%. So the first one is that your business growth actually is stunted. So you're always under capacity. You're just scraping by, and there's never enough time to deal with business improvement projects.
Yeah.
For example, with Graham and Michelle, are trying to put a KPI system in place for the team to drive better performance and accountability, which is awesome. But that's not getting done because Graham's constantly being pulled back to fill the gaps in the business because people are away.
Yeah.
Another example might be, you have an urgent job come in, a couple of tradespeople are away, you go and fix a damaged hot water cylinder. That's fine, makes you a couple of grand, whatever. But the same day you had a bunch of meetings booked with some new builders that you might be able to work with. But you don't do it because you pull back to fill the gap.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's actually costing you tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially because you don't cement those relationships.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think it's a capacity problem. You just can't do your job because you're filling the gaps for everyone else.
Well, sometimes you get into those little loops as well, where it's like I've really been meaning to make that fixed price list so that I can save time on pricing, but I'm so busy pricing that I can't make my fixed price list.
Yeah, the loop.
You never get out of it.
Yeah, or even worse, your key operations person's away and you've got to organise all the materials for the next week.
Yeah, that's it.
And you don't even do the pricing, let alone the fixed price list.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically everyone gets pulled down rungs, and man, honestly, it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting.
It is. And it's exhausting and it's frustrating because you're trying to do someone else's job.
Yeah.
Your job doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because you can't get to the stuff that you want to get to.
100%. 100%. And it's almost like, you've told yourself you have these huge priorities, but you're so busy, doing everyone else's priority because they're not there that your priorities don't get hit. And so, the business is ticking along and the operations are okay, but all the stuff you're super passionate about fixing just kind of sits on the back burner in a one day I'll get that done kind of category.
And this is a massive, and I think we've touched on this before in other episodes, like the recency bias. There's a bias towards dealing with stuff that's happening now. And obviously, if you've got jobs to do, they're happening now, and you feel like you've got to get those done, and I understand that. You've got to keep the wheels turning to keep things happening. The stuff often you would need to work on as a business owner and as sort of the high level of stuff that takes a bit of proactiveness, and if you don't do it today, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
But it is going to rob you of your future.
100%. And it just means there's always a better light in tomorrow, but tomorrow never really comes, does it?
Well, that's right. And again, we've talked about when thinking. When everyone's back, then I'll get on to that.
That's right. And look, I think the thing is like if you're looking for your team to step up, you can't always be stepping down. So I think this is a pretty important topic, right?
100%. So this is the thing. If you're suffering from this pullback paradox, is you have the mindset that someone's away, I need to fill the gap because I've got the skills to do it.
Yeah.
And when you're in that mindset, you keep people not down, but your team kind of does what they're doing. They don't get the opportunity to actually stretch themselves upways.
Yeah. So basically, just for those of you a bit more visual, if you imagine a ladder and the middle rung is taken out, and so you on the top rung step down to the middle, it robs the bottom rung the opportunity to step up to the middle, and that's really what we're talking about here is people can't step up because you step down to take the upward step. if that makes sense. I don't know.
Mate, that's another kind of English thing you've done there, the metaphor.
Well, it wasn't so much a metaphor. I actually just really wanted to be drawing for people, but
it was good. I like that. Now. You're sharp, mate.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Well, hey, look, on the other hand, we can get this right, and if we do, there's some pretty big benefits.
I think the first thing is you're freed up to do your job, so you can focus on your role as business leader, business owner, business developer. So that's huge, and that's your future's going to thank you for that. Your business is going to continue to grow. It's not sort of pinched for capacity all the time.
Yep.
I mean, you can keep a clear head and focus on what you need to do rather than getting sucked back into the whirlwind all the time.
Yeah.
And this is cool. Your team actually learns to step up and has the opportunity to learn some new skills. And, maybe they just do it for a couple of days. They get a bit of a taste for what the next step is while someone's away. And that builds the strength of your whole team, which is massively important.
Yeah. Crucial, absolutely crucial, and such a great opportunity. So, look, how do we actually put this in place? I think that's the key thing. Everyone's going to be wondering. So,
well, we've sort of touched on this. If you think about the impact, if you've got 10 team members, one's pretty much away all the time. If you've got 20, it's 2 or 3.
Yeah,
and if you've got 30, it's probably 5. People are away, so this is not something that goes away. No. And so, I guess the key thing is we actually got to plan for it and not just get by. So that's the first and probably most important lesson from today is be aware that people are always going to be away and you're under capacity already, even though you think you've got enough people.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important. It's like we said, you got 10 staff. If there's here in New Zealand anyway, you get 4 weeks annual leave, which is like vacation time. I know this is different in every country, but it doesn't matter how many staff you got. There's vacation time. You add it all up. I mean, if you got 10 staff in New Zealand, you have an entire year's worth of annual leave. You basically actually have 9 staff, and that's before you do anything else. It's before anyone takes a sick day, anyone has training to do, block courses, bereavement, whatever it is. So you've really got to plan that into the way that you schedule your work and the way that you actually plan everything. So,
and if you think about that, if you're always, let's just take the example of 10 because it's a nice tidy number. There's one person in your business that basically needs to fill the gap all the time, and if that's you've already got a full-time job. How are you going to do your job? And,
100%.
And it's quite hidden this because you're like, why am I always so flipping busy? Why can't I get to what I need to? It's because you're trying to do someone else's job.
Yeah, 100%.
All the time.
And I think when we think about planning, you also go through a transition here, right? I remember even for us here at Profitable Tradie, once upon a time, smaller team, if you wanted to take leave, you kind of just did. It was like, hey, I'm going to go on leave. And everyone's like, great, hey, you deserve a holiday. Now, bigger team, and it's getting to a point, hey, look, we actually have to use, a full-on leave calendar, much more formal application process and approval process, because otherwise we can very easily end up with half the team away in 1 week. So it just gets harder to manage, and I think that's the thing is you need to be a bit more proactive with the way that you do manage this as your team grows, or otherwise you can very, very quickly run into some problems, right?
Yeah, you basically let your clients down and business really suffers.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're going to have to, plan out when people take leave so that it doesn't double up, and sometimes that's a bit tough.
Yeah.
But it's going to create stop a whole bunch of problems as well.
And one thing just on that is if you look at it, and I got stung with this recently, letting 2 people have leave on the same week. One thing I thought should have probably thought about is it's the middle of winter. And if you're letting 2 people be away voluntarily in the middle of winter, the chance of someone also being sick is actually reasonable. And you can very quickly end up with, I approved 2 and now I have 4 gone. So try to space them out a little bit more at times when you're more likely to get sick leave, or there's going to be more block courses and training. I mean, these things are often cyclical or seasonal, and you can kind of plan around that. So but a bit of common sense and forward planning is really helpful here.
That's smart. You deliver again.
Hey, you call me the postman.
That's right. We call Lyndon the postman as well.
He's
Lyndon's
the real
our
postman.
Big South African monster on the team.
Yeah, he always delivers.
Always delivers.
Always delivers.
That's what he tells us anyway. So look, here's the thing: if you're filling the gaps and you find that's really making life tough for you, I think there's 2 things to look at. The first one is build bench strength.
100%.
So if we think about a sports team, they're only as good as their bench, and games are often won off the bench.
Yeah.
How many points were scored from the bench is often a thing in games of basketball. So a good rule of thumb is you need one more person than you think.
Yeah.
So build in that extra capacity and bench strength.
Yeah.
Plus, it takes way longer to train people and get them up to speed than you think. And if you have someone, leave and you're already stretched, then it's a killer as well. And this is the other thing. If you have 10 people or 20 people in your business, doesn't matter how great an employee you are, someone is probably going to leave for a pretty valid reason. Not that they don't like working with you, but maybe their partner has family somewhere else in the country and they're unwell or they're elderly and they really need to move back.
Yeah.
Just with the best will in the world, this stuff happens.
Yeah.
So building bench strength is unbelievably important.
Look, I've actually got a story here, Tony, if you don't mind.
Ooh,
it's one of my favourite sporting stories. So if you're listening, you may have heard of a guy called Tom Brady.
Maybe.
Just maybe. He's arguably
He's quite famous.
Yeah, quite famous. He's arguably one of the best players of all time when it comes to the NFL.
Yep.
Pretty famous story where basically what he did is he went to the management at the Patriots when he was there and he said, hey, look, I want to take half my salary and I want to give it back to you and I want you to use it to buy me a great second string offensive line. Basically, I want a better bench for the offensive line. And they said, really? Like what? And he's like, yeah, look, I've been studying all of the teams that have won Super Bowls, all the great teams. And one of the biggest commonalities is actually that they have great second string offensive lines. Why? Because at the end of the season, when it's cold and it's snowing, you're more likely to get injured and you get an injury or two in your offensive line and suddenly someone has to step up. And if they're not a great player, you now have a huge weakness in your offensive line. And what happens? The quarterback gets monstered and can't run the game. And then the team just cannot perform at the end of the season. Basically, this kicked up a huge stink. All the other quarterbacks in the league were really mad because they kind of used Tom Brady as a yardstick. Like, I'm X amount as good as Tom Brady, so I deserve X amount as much pay. And if he's giving away half his pay, you're actually devaluing the position. And you're setting a precedent that we don't want to live by. And Tom Brady in an interview got asked what he thought about that. Like, how do you feel about all the other quarterbacks feeling angry? And he said, well, look, it's just hard to comment on because most of the other quarterbacks will only ever watch the Super Bowl on TV. And I just love that. I love it. And I think like really what he's speaking to here is that whole thing. It's so important to have a strong bench because you will need them. This is not a maybe or a just in case or an insurance policy. And, Tom Brady was willing to give away half his salary. Half. For this guy, he's getting paid mega bucks. That's a lot of money. And he's willing to give that away back to the team because otherwise he doesn't rate his chances of being in the Super Bowl, let alone winning it. So you need that bench strength. And I think that's the big thing is when we're talking about this, building extra capacity and bench strength, it's going to take time, it's going to take work, training. And there's going to be times when you actually have somebody who's almost a spare wheel. You have an extra guy. That might happen on some weeks and you'll think, wow, what a cost. And I'm like, yeah, but in other weeks when people are away, you'll have just the right amount of capacity and you'll get work done and you'll make profit that you otherwise wouldn't have made because you'd be under strength. And that's going to be far more common than being overstaffed.
That's massive because the question when we talk about bench strength is, what about the costs and the profit margin? It's going to cost me extra money. Well, hey, it might in the short term. A little bit of margin erosion, perhaps a few percentage points, but it'll pay off in the long term hugely, both in terms of more profit in the long term because you can get the work done, your factory's the right size. 2, you've got great customer service, so you're going to retain clients much better. 3, your stress levels are under control, and therefore you're going to make better decisions and just be a better leader as well. So sometimes you need to take a little bit of today's profit and invest it for the future profit. Build a business for the next 10 or 15 years, not for the next 2 or 3 months.
That's right.
And don't get me wrong, and we're called Profitable Tradie for a reason because we, focus really heavily on making people more profitable because it all comes from that. So you need to be as profitable as you can on a month-by-month basis. But sometimes that little extra investment pays massive dividends in the long term.
Yeah, huge. And I mean, I'd go so far as to say it's not sometimes, it's most of the time.
Yep.
And honestly, what'll probably happen is you'll get that extra guy, and then you'll just fill them up with work, and you'll still be in the same position.
That's our experience as well.
Yeah, you'll just be a bigger business with the same problems. So like it almost never goes away. But I think that's that whole thing where it's not just getting the people, it's also training the people so that everybody's strengths and skills come up to the mark, so that you never step down, people step up. And I think that's point number 2, right?
Yeah, so point number 2 is, rather than the pullback paradox, use a push-up strategy.
Do the step-up strategy.
Yeah, step-up strategy. There we go. I like that.
What do you reckon?
And that's where you get the next most capable person in the team to actually step into the role.
Yeah.
Maybe with your guidance.
Yeah.
Now, that might be a bit of a stretch for them, but what an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
If you think about maybe you've got a really solid tradesperson or a tech, and your operations person is away.
Yeah.
And they get into the office for maybe 5 or 6 hours or a couple of days a week for a couple of weeks, and see the inner workings of operations and get a feel for getting materials out on site and organising the team and stuff. What an amazing opportunity. You're building bench strength as well, and you're giving them the opportunity to grow and develop, which helps with the brightness of future for your team.
Yep.
Shows the team that you're committed to their growth. And so what we do is we turn crisis into opportunity.
That's right.
Which is amazing. So you use the problem of absence actually as an opportunity to educate and develop people to build your bench strength.
Yeah. Now, I think if you know you're going to do that as well, and I'm sure we'll do an episode at some point on succession planning, but I think the big thing is, like, if you know that if my ops manager's away, I'm going to have to step someone up, then it starts you thinking about, well, who would I step up? And you think, oh, Mike's my probably best tradesman after my ops manager, good leader. It'd probably be good to be able to step up into that role. So then you start just chipping away at training Mike a little bit here and there on what it's like to be an ops manager, which keeps him engaged. It gives him brightness of future, like you're talking about. Make sure that he sees a future within your company, and it's good for him. He's going to be excited about learning new stuff. And then when your ops manager goes away at some point, because they will, Mike's not being thrown in the deep end either. He has dabbled a bit, and so you can start proactively doing some training with people on the step-ups you'd like them to take if and when they have to. And hey, look, worst case scenario, it doesn't really happen for Mike that often that he has to step into that role. But now you got 2 people that could do it, and when you grow big enough to need 2 ops managers, Mike's ready and you're good.
That's right. And if your ops manager ever leaves, you don't have that terrible problem of, single point of failure, which is one person. So you can you've got a ready-made replacement to step into the role. Now they may need a bit more training, but maybe they're half or 2/3 of the way there already. And how amazing is that? Because, as a business owner, when someone hands in their resignation and you're like, my goodness, the sky's falling, that's a horrible feeling. But if you've built some of the strength, you're like, well, okay, well, it sucks, but, we're cool.
That's it. And I think that's the whole thing, is that really should have a succession plan for most people in your business. And if you're proactively training on some of the stuff that need to step into other roles, then when this comes along, you're ready, you're prepared, and hey, look, it's good for the team. They enjoy it, they like it, they're motivated by it. So there's really nothing to be lost here, but there's a lot to be gained.
But it does require quite a significant little change in the way you look at it. And that change is, rather than you think, oh, well, I'll just jump in and fill the hole, you need to switch that back and say, hey, I'm going to be the last person to fill this hole. I'll do whatever it takes to fill this hole with anyone else before me. And if you consistently do that, it's going to have a huge impact on boosting the strength of the team. Yeah,
I try to think of it like you're the conductor of the orchestra. One of the key violinists falls off stage, and you could either jump in and you could play that violin, or you could just keep conducting the rest of the orchestra. I'm like, please conduct the rest of the orchestra, because otherwise no one knows what they're doing. You jump in the violin chair, there's an extra violin going, but everyone's lost.
It's all lost.
Yeah, someone still needs to steer the ship, right?
That's right, 100%.
Sweet. Well, shall we land this plane?
Let's do it. So growing your business, when you do that and you get a team, it does feel fantastic. It feels like you're making, great progress until they start needing time off. And that may be because of vacation or sickness or training or whatever else. Trouble is, you end up doing their job as well as trying to do your own.
That's it.
But what you need to do is you need to really, at all costs, avoid this pullback paradox and focus on building your bench strength so that your business can keep growing. And probably more importantly, it's going to stay fun for you to run and for you to own.
Hey, I hope you liked the video. Check out all the other videos in the channel and like and subscribe.